BSc, third semester, session 10, Physiology of respiration, exchange of gases. Physiology of respiration, exchange of gases. The learning objective. The students learn about the definition of respiration. They learn about the type of respiration and also they learn about the transport of oxygen. Let us come to the definition of respiration. So in physiology, respiration is defined as the transport of oxygen from outside air to the cell within the tissue and the transport of carbon dioxide in the opposite direction. So this is in contrast to the biochemical definition of respiration, which refers to the cellular respiration, and respiration is a metabolic process by which an organism obtained energy by reacting with oxygen with glucose to give water, carbon dioxide and energy in the form of ATP molecules. It is called a cellular respiration because it takes place in the individual cells of an organism. The two types of respiration is external respiration and internal respiration. External respiration. The exchange of gases between the environment and the body in the lungs is called external respiration or gaseous exchange, or in other words, it includes all the process that is involved in exchanging oxygen to carbon dioxide between the body and the environment. It involves moving air in and out of the lungs, that is inhaling and exhaling. Whereas the internal respiration, the exchange of gases between the body fluids, that is the blood, and the cells is called internal respiration or otherwise called as tissue respiration. The area over which this exchange takes place is called respiratory surfaces, or the diffusion of gases between the body fluid, that is blood, and the cytoplasm of the cell, which involves the uptake of oxygen and production of the carbon dioxide within the individual cells, is called internal respiration. Next, another types of respiration are aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Aerobic means with air, and this type of respiration needs oxygen for it to occur. So it is called as aerobic respiration. That means respiration takes place in the presence of oxygen. So you can see the equation here where the glucose molecules combines with the 6 molecules of oxygen to produce 6 molecules of carbon dioxide and 6 molecules of water and 2900 kilojoules of energy, which is in the form of ATP. So this is what is called as aerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic means without air and means without. Sometimes there is not enough oxygen around for animals to respire, but they still need energy to survive. So they carry out respiration in the absence of oxygen to produce energy. So this is what is called as anaerobic respiration. For example, if our muscles need oxygen and glucose to respire aerobically and produce the energy, and they require are carried out to the muscles via the blood. However, if we were to carry out vigorous exercise, our heart and the lungs would not be able to get enough oxygen. In that particular case, our muscles, in order to respire, the muscle carry out anaerobic respiration. As we see in the equation, the glucose is converted into lactic acid and energy. So the energy produced during anaerobic respiration is very small, that is 120 kilojoules, when it is compared to that of the aerobic respiration, where the energy produced in the form of ATP is 2900 kilojoules. This is the major difference between the aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Next is, you can also see the transport of oxygen, that is the physiology of respiration, the exchange of gases. So what is the primary function of the hemoglobin? The hemoglobin is to transport oxygen. The main function of the hemoglobin is to transport the oxygen. So hemoglobin is the oxygen transport protein, and it is used in the blood of all the vertebrate. It is composed of 4 polypeptide chains, each of which contains one ion, and the ion is a site of oxygen binding, and each ion can bind one molecule of oxygen, and thus hemoglobin is capable of binding total of 4 oxygen molecules. So in humans, the average hemoglobin concentration is 14 to 16 gram per 100 ml, and it is important that the purpose of hemoglobin is to pick the oxygen in the lungs and deliver it to the tissues. Hemoglobin is able to deliver more oxygen to those tissues that need more oxygen. And you can also see in the equation, the hemoglobin combines with oxygen to form oxyhemoglobin. And also the splitting up in vice versa direction, where oxyhemoglobin can split into hemoglobin and oxygen. And also the carboxyhemoglobin HbCO2 is converted into Hb plus CO2 where the blood enters into the lungs. And hemoglobin combines with oxygen to form oxyhemoglobin. The oxyhemoglobin dissociate to form Hb plus O2, and Hb plus CO2 combine to form carboxyhemoglobin. This is the fusion of hemoglobin with oxygen. Next, coming to the curve that is called as Hb saturation curve. So what I told, that the major function of the hemoglobin is to combine with oxygen to form oxyhemoglobin. And the primary factors that determines how much oxygen is actually bound to hemoglobin is the partial pressure of oxygen. The pressure generated by the oxygen is called partial pressure of oxygen. Here only oxygen bound to hemoglobin, and it is carried by the blood. And there is a small amount that is dissolved in the plasma of the blood, where this amount is physiologically insignificant and we can ignore it. So the maximum amount of oxygen that can be carried is determined by the amount of hemoglobin. When every oxygen binding site on all the hemoglobin molecules are occupied by oxygen, the blood is said to be 100% saturated, and the blood cannot carry any more oxygen. So this is the Hb saturation curve. So when half of the sides are filled with oxygen and the blood is considered to be 50% saturated. When it is fully saturated, it is called 100% saturation. When it is half of it is saturated, or the site is filled with the oxygen, then blood is said to be 50% saturated. And this can be shown with the graph as it is shown here. This demonstrates the effect of partial pressure of oxygen and the percentage saturation of hemoglobin. And this curve was created by the scientist, and he exposed hemoglobin to different partial pressure of oxygen, and then he determined the percentage of saturation of hemoglobin to each partial pressure of oxygen. And then he read that percentage saturation on the y-axis and the partial pressure on the x-axis. So a partial pressure of 40 mmHg, that is the partial pressure that is normally at the capillaries in the resting tissues, that is in 40 when it is at 40 mmHg, and the partial pressure of 100 mmHg, here the partial pressure that is normally in the capillaries in the lungs, and this is constant and does not changes under any normal circumstances. And this is what you have to write about the HB saturation curve. Thank you. And also in the next slide, you can see the some of the questions, multiple choice questions. So the first one is, during inspiration, how does alveolar pressure compare to atmospheric pressure? First A answer is alveolar pressure is greater than atmospheric pressure. B, alveolar pressure is less than atmospheric pressure. Then C, alveolar pressure is same as atmospheric pressure. D, alveolar pressure is one of the few pressure where the reference pressure is not atmospheric. The answer is alveolar pressure is less than atmospheric pressure. The second one is, which one of the following is the correct path of carbon dioxide from the tissue to the atmosphere? The answer is A, that is reaction with water to make H2CO3, dissociates to form H positive and HCO3. So again H positive combines with imidazole, side chain of hemoglobin carried back to the lungs has HHB and HCO3, reverse reactions to form carbon dioxide. This is the answer. Third one is, the exchange of gases between inhaled air and the blood is called internal respiration. So in both B and D I have mentioned internal respiration. So the answer is internal respiration. Next, aerobic respiratory pathway is also termed as the pathway. A is anaerobic, B catabolic, creatine phosphate, A amphiolic. The answer is D. The maximum volume of the air contained in the lungs by full forced inhalation is called vital capacity, tidal volume, total lung capacity, inspiratory capacity. The answer is tidal volume. For further reference, you can go to the books that I have shown in the slide. Thank you.